And we are live. Welcome to another edition of DT Live. Hope everybody's doing all right today. I'm still kind of getting situated here. Give me just a second here. As far as topics for the live stream this evening, we're just going to leave it open. Anything you guys want to talk about, I will, of course, converse with you guys in the YouTube chat. All right. So this is going to be a bloat / live stream, or as I've recently taken to calling it, a bloat plus live stream. And no, the picture, the really fat guy with his belly on the picture, that's not me. I know some of you guys were asking, is that a picture of DT? Come on, I'm not that big. That's a picture of my buddy Richard. All right, let me check out some of the chat. A lot of you guys were here early. Let's see if I can go back. I think some of the chat is older than what I can go back and read. Yeah, that thumbnail. Is that an actual picture of Derek? Now that's not me. Come on, guys. Oh. Yeah, the thumbnail is quite ugly. Okay. Okay, this is scary. That wasn't a scary thumbnail. You guys act like you've never seen obese people before. Come on. All right, yeah. Zoom is bloat. Are we talking about Zoom, the chat client, or just zooming in and out in general? Not sure what you guys were talking about there. Anything other than tiling window managers is bloat, says Bread Moth. I would agree that tiling window managers is definitely where it's at. You shouldn't be using a big bloated heavy desktop environment like GNOME or Plasma or XFCE. When just get a window manager and build your own desktop environment around that window manager. It may or may not necessarily be lighter than that full-featured desktop environment you've been using, but at least it will be tailored to your needs. That's the important thing about window managers, is you build your own desktop environment. You're not just spoon-fed somebody else's vision of what a desktop environment should be. And you never have to worry about your desktop environment changing on you. The next version of that desktop environment looking completely different, having different functionality, added functionality or removed functionality. You don't have to worry about that with window managers because that desktop is your desktop. The only time it changes is when you change it. I'm currently debloating my Linux install now. Yeah, I need to work on my install as far as debloating my install. What I'm going to have to do is I need to actually wipe out this install of Arco that I've been running for about a year now, because I don't think I could debloat this one at this point, because if I run a quick neo fetch and zoom in here in Alacrity, well, am I in Alacrity? Yeah, I am. Okay. All right. Let's see. Packages installed, 1994. That is the amount of packages I have installed from Pacman. And I believe that is all the packages installed on the system. The other day I removed every Flatpak, Snap, and App image off of my system. Not because I don't like Snaps, Flatpaks, and App images. I actually like them. I do run them. But I didn't have any on the system that I couldn't also install from the Arch repos or the AUR. So I was trying to get the system a little lighter with a lot less packages installed on the system, because, having snaps and flatpaks on the system do bring in more dependencies. I mean, you can't just install a snap pack. You actually have to have snapd installed on the system. You have to install a few things before you can even run snaps. Same with flatpaks. But still, I've got 2,000 packages installed on the system. Because I've got so much software from, doing the channel. I'm always checking out new software, new programs, new window managers and terminal emulators and shells and different things. I just install them, and then, I've got all of this crap on the system. Much of it I don't even use, or at least I don't use on a regular basis. Yeah, it's 4:27 Central Time. Yeah, well, right now it's 4:35 Central Time. That is correct. Yeah, I'm in the Central Time Zone. You guys know I'm in Chicago. That's a joke. I'm obviously in Louisiana. I've mentioned that many times on camera. But for some reason, when I do my Linux installs, I always choose the Central Time Zone. And typically, you know, when a map comes up, I'll just click in the Central Time Zone. It almost always defaults to Chicago. Or if I have to pick it out of a drop-down menu, I just type C on the keyboard to get to Chicago. And I choose that because Chicago, Illinois is in the Central Time Zone as where I'm at in Louisiana. So it's the same time zone. But a lot of people see me choosing Chicago on those videos, on those distro install videos. And like people are, hey man, you know, DT's accent is kind of strange. Where is he at? And then some of you guys will answer, he's in Chicago, of course. It's like, no, I'm definitely not in Chicago. I'm a long way from Chicago. If I had to drive it, it'd take me about 12 or 14 hours to drive to Chicago. And it's a pretty straight shot. You know, it was mostly interstate. You know, it's not like winding roads. Chicago's a good ways away, though. He is one state over from me, says Breadmoth. So Breadmoth, that means you've got to be in, what, Texas, Arkansas, or Mississippi? I really like Texas and Mississippi. I hope you're not an Arkansan. Quick joke, guys. Did you know that the toothbrush was invented in Arkansas? How can you tell? Because if it would have been invented in any of the other 49 states, they would have called it the teeth brush. I kid, Arkansas people. I kid. I know somebody's going to take that seriously. Some hillbilly in Arkansas right now. That swamp Billy down in Louisiana is making fun of me. Yeah, DT is not Cajun. Nope, not a Cajun. Obviously, from the accent, I'm not Cajun. And Breadmoth, you're from Texas. Ah. Maybe next stream I'll do a Texas joke then, just for you. And Orion has got to jump in. Well, he's in Mississippi. Well, I've already made fun of Arkansas. I can't make fun of Texas or Mississippi. And that's just too much. That would be bloated. Yeah, Breadmoth says, I heard that joke, only it was West Virginia, not Arkansas. You know, I used to live actually in southeast Ohio, right along the West Virginia border. Spent a lot of time in West Virginia. And, you know, as backwards and hillbilly as a state like Arkansas might be, West Virginia is like otherworldly as far as it's a different world in West Virginia. It really is. Yeah, greetings from Scotland, says Barney. Oh, cool. I see Josh from Keep It Teggy is also in the chat. Says, what's up, DT? Yeah, I'm from Louisiana, too. You're a cool guy, Josh. Yeah, Gabe is in Texas. I lived in Texas for a little while, too. Yeah. Red Moss says he went to Louisiana last year, discovered a beer called Abita. Yeah, Abita, it's a pretty big brewery. Now it's becoming pretty big. It's getting kind of like national distribution. They make a ton of different beers, but the Abita beers are pretty good. I don't drink them that often anymore, but I have in the past. But they make a amber ale that's all right. They make one called Turbo Dog that I really like. Yeah, West Virginian here. Sorry, Dylan. Everybody's checking in now. All right, so what do you guys want to talk about? And we're getting a lot of people letting us know where they're at. Florida, Ecuador, Saudi Arabia. Oh, got quite a global audience. Got some folks from Germany. Looking at my YouTube analytics is always interesting because you wonder where people are that watch your content. Now, obviously, being in the U.S. and being a native English speaker, you know, all my content's in English. A large portion of the viewers are in the U.S., but I have a pretty big audience from India, from Germany, from China. Like there's substantial portions of percentages of the people that watch my channel in those particular countries. And I always wonder, how did these people find me? Especially, you know, if you don't speak English, or it's not your native language anyway. It's a second language for people in those countries. Yeah, greetings from Brazil. Very cool. Hey, Derek, will you ever be tinkering with Nix OS deeply? Probably not. It's not something that really interests me. I'm not sure what I would do with it. You know, what would I do with it? You know, for what I do. Yeah, your video regarding master and slave being removed from Git repos. I feel you came off as a bit naive. It's okay not to be interested in politics, but some things you do start noticing. Okay. Don't really care about GitHub changing master domain, sorry. I get some people may be wrapped up in that. I'm not. I don't care. Especially since you don't even have to use GitHub. I mean, you could switch to something else. You could switch to GitLab. Of course, GitLab, I think, is making the same change. But you could just host your own Git repositories if you're really concerned about the name of master repository and main repository. So, what am I drinking tonight? This would be a Blue Moon. One of my standard go-tos. Yeah, that's something like the whole Microsoft wanting to change master branch to main branch or whatever in GitHub. It's kind of a non-issue anyway. It's not really a big deal. They're not really making a difference in, you know, promoting any kind of social changes by changing the word master domain. Like it's really almost a non-story. You know. And, you know, especially when you're dealing with corporations, too, because you have obviously GitHub is backed by Microsoft, big, giant, trillion-dollar corporation. You know, it's all about PR. You know, it's all about the public image for them. They're just trying to have some good press, right? You know, you got to kind of understand what they're trying to do. And, you know, they're not trying to anger anybody by making that change. But a lot of people want to get upset about this kind of stuff. I don't get it. How about Vim plus a tmux config? I don't use tmux. I mean, I've installed tmux before and I've played with it, but I'm not really a tmux user. And right now, I haven't been doing much with Vim, although I'm sure you're going to get some more Vim content on the channel, right? It's kind of a regular star on the channel is Vim. You're always going to get Vim content, Emacs content, tiling window manager content. Let's see. Yeah, Blue Moon is great. I love the citrus flavor. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of that traditional Belgian wit kind of beer. Matter of fact, Blue Moon's all right for an American copy of a Belgian wit. But the actual Belgian beers, if you can find Hoegaarden or Leffy, two beers from Belgium. And occasionally I can find one or both of those around here. And just fantastic beers. And they got that, you know, orange peel and coriander kind of spice to them, similar to Blue Moon. You could use tmux instead of the terminal window swallow. Yeah, but why? If you're already a tmux user, yeah. But why, if I'm not using tmux, why would I use... That's like the people... I get people that say, hey, man, you don't have to patch ST. Because if you had tmux could handle scrollbacks and splits and tabs and, you know, just install tmux and you don't have to patch ST. Well, okay, so I don't patch ST. Instead, I install some extra program. Basically, it's the same thing as patching. If I got to install something else I wasn't even using anyway... I might as well have patched it. Yeah, one of those off-topic questions, but what instruments do you play? The recorder, the trombone videos were interesting. Yep. So my main instrument is the trombone. It's actually what I went to school and studied, as a music performance major. So I play all of the brass instruments, I'm comfortable with. Some of the woodwind instruments. I'm okay on the piano. I do pretty good on the piano. I hadn't played a piano in a while. I actually don't have one here. I need to buy me a piano or at least a keyboard. A big keyboard that I could play. Not good on any of the string instruments. So I don't play any percussion. Now, would you start a series from vanilla Emacs, or do you like staying with Doom? Well, I installed vanilla Emacs and used it for 30 days. Just to use it, in its kind of default configuration. You have to configure it a little bit, but I barely configured it. And I used it for a month, with the standard GNU Emacs key bindings. So I'm not sure what you want past that. If you want to see me heavily customize vanilla Emacs, well then, by the time I'm through heavily customizing it, I end up with something pretty close to Doom Emacs or Space Max or, some of the distributions of Emacs, especially if they use evil mode. I'm going to end up with most of that same stuff installed anyway. But I've thought about doing a series on Emacs, starting with installing Doom Emacs, because so many of you guys are trying that particular distribution out, and how you configure maybe Doom Emacs. Because I think that's a better start than starting with vanilla GNU Emacs, where you have to install hundreds of different plugins and you have to spend months writing that init.el file. Now, that's great if you are a hardcore programmer and you love eLisp and, that's what you do. It's not what I do. I doubt that's what a lot of you guys that are trying it out do either. But if you're that kind of person, that really hardcore person, you don't need to watch a video on me configuring Emacs anyway. You're going to read the documentation, configure it yourself, configure it to your liking. Yeah, what are you planning to do today? Absolutely nothing other than what I'm doing right now. We could do something. I'm open to suggestions. Somebody was asking, DT, are you using Xmonad? Yeah, I'm in Xmonad again today. This is basically the same config from 2 days ago from the live stream. So, I still got the tree select, and I added some key bindings here. So this is my workspaces. And if I hit D on the keyboard, I'm on the dev workspace, and I could go to T for terminal, E for Emacs, I think. No, that's not what I did. What I did is, this is interesting. Let me pull up my Xmonad config so you guys can actually see what I'm doing here. Because I didn't do this on camera, but I added some key bindings. Some key bindings for the tree select. So what I'm going to do is, in the first level of the tree select, I'm going to have a single key press open these workspaces. D for dev, W for web, G for graphics, M for music, V for video. But when I go 2 levels deep, it's going to be super plus a letter. So super T, super E, super D. And if I happen to have 3 levels deep, it's going to be super shift, H, P, S. Kind of what I've been working here. So my tree navigation here, which is these navigation keys for the tree select. And then I have basically these shortcuts to go to specific workspaces. So if I open up the tree select and I go to D, W, G, M, V, you see it goes to all those. And if I go super T, super E, super D, super F, super P, Super Z instead of V, because V is going to be used on a different workspace here in a minute. And I can't remember what I had in web. Super B, I think, and then Super C, Super E for email. No, E was Emacs. Super M for email. Super R for RSS, and Super, it wasn't web, W for web conference. I forget what I used. No, it was Super W. Okay. And then a Super Shift H would go to, or Super Shift S. Was that one I used? No. It wasn't Super Shift, it was Super Alt. Super Alt H for Haskell, Super Alt P for Python. So 3 levels deep is Super Alt plus a key binding. Anyway, just more stuff I've been playing with on those. But yes, I'm in Xmonad still today. Yeah, DT, you could split the Xmonad config up into modules. That's what a lot of people do once it starts getting big. Especially, probably the largest section of most people's config is the key bindings. So especially that. So if I go down, to my key bindings here, starting here at line 685, my key bindings, it's about 150 lines. It goes down to line 826. So a lot of people, especially with their key bindings, will just throw that in a different file. They'll create a keybindings.hs or something, keep all of that just to make the document a little cleaner, make your config a little cleaner. I may end up breaking it up. If I start breaking it up, though, because I'm doing this for educational purposes, then it may be confusing for people. They're not going to be able to necessarily download one file and read it and study it and use it if they wanted to. Then they'd have to maybe download 2, 3, 5 different files. So it may be a little tough to read a 1,000-line config file, but especially for the real noobs that are going to try to use my config, it may be confusing if I give them 5 different Xmonad configs, and hope that they actually download all of them. Because I know I'm going to get messages about it if I start splitting it up into different things. Because I don't have any kind of install script or anything, to actually put all of my configs, on somebody's system. I'm trusting you guys to do a git clone and figure out where you need to put everything. Hey, DT, maybe as a gateway to tiling window managers, show how to set up pseudo tiling in OpenBox. Well, I've done a little of that in the past. It's not a very complicated subject either. If anybody wanted to see how to do pseudo tiling in OpenBox, they could just go grab my OpenBox config from my .files repository. All you would have to do is just take a look at the key bindings and what I'm doing there, and you'll see. I mean, I guess it would make a okay video, but there's not much to it. Yeah, DT, I'd like to see a review for the Window Maker on your channel. I've got Window Maker installed. I installed it like 3 months ago. I just can't force myself to get into it and use it and do a video on it. I mean, it's a floating window manager and it's kind of weird. Yeah, it's like, I could log into it and say, hey, here's window manager. I haven't really done much, but here's what it kind of looks like out of the box. But nobody wants to watch that. That would be kind of lazy kind of content. But me getting into window manager and configuring it to my liking and doing some neat stuff with it, it's not a window manager I'd use, to be honest, so it'd be kind of hard for me to get into it like that. I may eventually do something with Window Maker. I mean, that's why I installed it. Just got to work myself up to it at some point. I've got a different window manager that I'm going to talk about soon, though. One I haven't done on the channel before. Maybe tomorrow. I'm thinking about doing a video on a different window manager tomorrow. You guys will have to stay tuned for that. But I never set up specifically, I am doing this video on this date and this time, but tentatively, my plans tomorrow are doing a video on a new window manager. And then Sunday, for you guys that are patrons of the channel, I'm going to do my monthly chat with patrons Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time here in the US. We're probably going to do it on Jitsi this time, since people have been asking to do Jitsi instead of Zoom. Zoom's typically what we do those chats on. All right, is it wrong that I feel that Gentoo has unnecessary complication with its package manager and OpenRC and netifrc? Gentoo is not unnecessary complication. It's only unnecessary complication if you don't need that stuff. And that's the problem. I think a lot of people, people get into their mind that, man, I need to install Gentoo because it seems like all the cool kids use Gentoo. Like if you want to be taken as a serious hardcore Linux person, a serious hardcore hacker, you got to be running Gentoo. So these people install Gentoo, and then you got to do all the stuff with the use flags and stuff like that. You don't care, right? You're used to binary distributions. You don't care about building all your packages from source, and you don't care about the use flags. You just want all the use flags. The way a distribution like Arch does, it just uses all the use flags for every package. It just installs everything. That's what you want. And the kernel, you don't care about compiling your own kernel. Just give me the big generic kernel that has everything, right? That's the way most people are. So most people, yeah, Gentoo makes absolutely no sense for most people. It would make no sense for me personally. I'll have to talk about myself. It would make no sense for me to run Gentoo. Because I simply wouldn't use it the way it's meant to be used. But that's just me. I would never say Gentoo is is unnecessarily complicated, because there are people that do want that kind of granular kind of control over everything that they're installing on the system. If you're not that kind of person, then so be it. There's other distributions for people like you and me, though. I missed some of the chat here, guys. Sorry about that. Let me get Emacs closed here. I still had it open on my screen. Tired of looking at my Xmonad config. All right, let me catch up on some of the chat. Breadmoss says he is the only Slackware user here. I doubt that. I bet there's at least one other crazy person hanging out in the chat. We've got 268 people watching. There has to be one other sick individual in the chat that's also running Slackware other than Breadmoth. I kid, Slackware users. It's a fine distribution. But package management. Now, I just said that, Gentoo, there's every distribution has a use case. Slackware, even Slackware has a use case. Is anyone using Artix Linux? I've tried Artix in the past. It's fine. It's just Arch Linux. It's like any other Arch-based distribution. So if you're cool with an Arch base, Artix is great. Like one Arch-based distribution. If you use one Arch-based distribution, you've kind of used them all. Kind of like Debian distributions. If you've used one, you've used them all. And same thing with the Arch distros. Yeah, DT, I use, as of now, Awesome Window Manager with some tweaks, but I kind of want that dynamic menus that some window managers have. Which one should I use that is very lightweight? So you're looking for dynamic menus that you can use with Awesome Window Manager. I'm assuming you're asking about stuff like dmenu or Rofi. I'm assuming that's what you're asking. If that is what you're asking, check out dmenu or Rofi. Those are probably the two most popular. I think Awesome Window Manager also has its own built-in prompt that you could use. It's written in Lua probably, or C++. Kind of like Xmonad. Xmonad has some built-in prompts that you could use that are written in Haskell. But most Xmonad users install dmenu and just use that. That's probably what most Awesome Window Managers users do as well. They just install dmenu. Dmenu is kind of the de facto. Try that out. If you like it, great. If you don't, maybe check out Rofi. Yeah, Slack is a cool distro. Yeah. And Slackware was the first. That is correct. Well, it's not. I don't know if it was the first distro. It's the oldest one that's still with us, though. I mean, let's be correct here. Yeah. Slackware and Debian were both started within a month of each other. Late in 1993, I think 1992 or 1993. I'd have to Google it. But they're the oldest distros that are still with us. Thousands and thousands of distros have come and gone. Those two are still around. Yeah, DT, is Arch Linux 32 reputable? I have no idea. I didn't know. I'm assuming Arch Linux 32. I've never heard of that. Or is that somebody just still trying to maintain some of the 32-bit stuff for Arch Linux? Because Arch Linux has been 64-bit only forever. And I know that would probably not be like an official thing that the Arch Linux guys are doing. That would probably be doing, that would be like Joe Bob's spin of Arch Linux trying to maintain a 32-bit ISO for it. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Again, I don't know anything about Arch Linux 32. Artix looks nice. The Runit thing looks very intuitive. Haven't played with Runit too much, but when I have installed Artix in the past, I did install Artix with Runit. Of course, I've installed Void a few times with Runit. It's an init system. Your machine boots up with it. As long as the machine boots up, every init system is basically the same. If you want to learn Linux, just study POSIX and operating systems. Yeah, and then somebody's mentioning that they love Rofi. Yeah, Rofi's great. I've used Rofi in the past. Hey, DD, what's the new window manager you may look at tomorrow? You gotta stay tuned. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I mean, what fun would that be if I told you guys? It'll be cool, though. I think you guys will enjoy it. The video I've been kind of wanting to make for a little bit. And one people have been asking me to make, so. Yeah, Arch 32 is a 32-bit. Okay, that's what I was assuming. DT, do you recommend Awesome to noob window manager users? Yeah, if you're new to window managers and new to tiling window managers, the Awesome window manager is great. It comes with a panel, it comes with a menu, and the default config out of the box kind of works. I mean, it's like anything else. You're going to want to configure it to your needs, but you can just install plain vanilla Awesome window manager and actually start using it. Where some of the other tiling window managers, you can't just install them and go to work. You better have a config file laying around that you've used before. But Awesome, I'm fine just installing Awesome and using it if I had to. Without going and grabbing one of my configs. And what do you think about Light Table Text Editor and Stack Browser? I don't know those. Sorry. Haven't used them. Let's see, it's going to be DWM from Windows. Well, I've done plenty of DWM content. I mean, I installed DWM and started using it on the channel, 2 years ago? Did some DWM. I've done plenty of DWM content. We don't need more DWM videos. And Windows, come on now. Stop it. Yeah, see if you can do anything with it, I wonder. I'm not sure what he was asking there. DT, are you going to redo the Instant OS Instant Window Manager review? There's no reason to. Let's see. Mint has done a good job of integrating Awesome, the Awesome Window Manager. Okay, what are they doing with Awesome? I should check that out. They got like an official, like Awesome community spin or something that they got going on. The DT, I disagree with recommending Awesome. Configuring it is difficult for most newbies. Yeah, configuring anything is difficult for most newbies, but it's At least you can use it as soon as you install it. I think the thing that frustrates most, especially real noobs, is when they install something and they can't even figure out how to use it right away. Like, unless you know the key bindings to bring up a terminal or bring up a run prompt, you're screwed. You're just completely screwed. You don't have to worry about that with Awesome. You know, because Awesome has a menu, a panel. You just click on the desktop, it brings up this open box right-click menu kind of thing that's got all your applications there, and you can launch them. All the applications by default have title bars and close buttons and things. Like, you can actually use the mouse. It's basically like a floating window manager when you first install it, until you configure it to, you know, get rid of all that stuff. Would you say Awesome is for anyone like me who is a Python guy? Well, Awesome isn't written in Python. Awesome is configured entirely in Lua. So whether you know any Python is kind of irrelevant with Awesome. It doesn't matter. DWM is also a window manager from Windows. Oh, okay. I haven't used Windows in forever. I don't know anything about Windows, guy. So, DT, what would you do in a dynamic tiling window manager when you want to make a custom layout on the spot? You want to make a custom layout on the spot, meaning not actually write one in my config, meaning just place some windows on the screen. I mean, I would find a layout, I guess, that I was already kind of using. I mean, like right now, this would be the master and stack layout, but if I wanted to, you know, do something else, I mean, I could just, got so many different layouts installed. I mean, I could go to this one, this magnify layout, which is a master and stack, but this magnifies the window that has focus. See when I move the mouse around, or I could use my J and K keys as well. Let's see. I mean, I could go to monocle mode, of course. Floating mode is the ultimate one because I could do anything with that. I could do something with tabs. And back to master and stack. I've got some other layouts also in my config. Xmonad does have the ability to combine layouts. You can create a new layout using 2 or more different layouts. So I could create maybe a master and stack layout, but maybe the master is a tabbed layout. I have tabs in the master window, and then of course the stacking windows as part of the stack. I mean, you can get creative, but if you're talking about, so you got to clarify, if you're talking about a custom layout on the fly, like you can decide where windows tile, that's not what a dynamic tiler is. But if you need that, I mean, I guess you could do that. Just get into floating mode and just put the windows where you want. Like if I'm recording in OBS right now, obviously, and maybe this scene that I'm recording, I need this window in a specific spot in a specific size, which I often do. I mean, I could grab this with the mouse and I can just pull it out and I could just put it anywhere I want to. And then I could grab this one and put this anywhere I wanted to, whatever size I wanted. I mean, it's just like a floating window manager at that point. I could just grab them and put them wherever I want. I've never come across a time where I needed a window somewhere and I couldn't put it there. I think that maybe that's what you're hinting at, like you can't make it happen. It's like any other window manager. Tiling window managers can be floating when you need them to be. And once they're in floating mode, you just resize the windows to what you need it to be, put them in the right spot where you need it to be. All right. DT, why don't you give rat poison some love, huh? Stay tuned. Oh, okay. I don't think rat poison's going to be the window manager we do tomorrow. But you never know. I mean, until you see what we do tomorrow, who knows? Have you ever played with Arduino or something like that? I don't have any Arduinos, no. Yeah, DT, that's why I love BSPWM. It is too simple. Okay, yeah, BSPWM is a great window manager. Hey DT, how would you convince someone to use Vim instead of VS Code? How would I convince them? I wouldn't, I don't know. Why would I be trying to convince them? Typically, people are looking for something, they're going to try something out. Like if I demonstrate something in Vim and people say, hey, that looks cool, they'll try it out if they think it fits their workflow. If they don't, or, there are some people that do nothing with a text editor, that can barely type. The only time they open something is to make simple edits of a config file here and there, or maybe leave a note or something, use it for note taking or something. And for people like that, it doesn't matter. But if you spend a lot of time in a text editor, then having an extensible text editor of some kind makes sense. And it really doesn't matter which one. Vim, Emacs, even something like Cocoon, which I did a video on a month or so ago. Very customizable text editors. You can configure them to do anything for you. It's kind of like configuring your window manager to do anything for you. Get why people run tiling window managers is because anything you can imagine, you can make happen. The same thing with these extensible text editors. You're not limited in any way. All right. See if I can catch up on the chat here. I know I missed some stuff here. DT, I was basically asking if there was some way I could do a manual tiling mode in a dynamic tiling window manager. I don't know. I've never tried. I've never wanted manual tiling. So, I use dynamic tilers because that's what I like. I've never, I don't know. And typically most people, well, I don't know, everybody's workflow is different, but typically people that get into tiling window managers only use one or two layouts anyway. All I ever use is the master and stack layout. Unless I want one single window full screen or something, and then I'll get into this monocle layout where those three windows I have are actually stacked on top of each other, when I could cycle through them with J and K. But that's usually all I'm going to use is that monocle layout, and most of the time I'm in master and stack. I can't ever imagine a time where I want to do something other than this layout. If I wanted to. The only other thing I could do in the master and stack, the only modification that would make any sense, could I add more master windows to the master? Yes, you can. There is actual modules in Xmonad, if you wanted to add them, where you can, with a key binding, increase the number of master windows in the master section. I guess that's kind of changing things on the fly if you wanted to do that. But other than that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you would. I'm not sure how you would want to change it. Manual tilers never made any sense to me. Because I've never been tiling windows and actually wanted to figure out where the windows go. I just want them to go somewhere. I don't need to decide where they go. And once they're on the screen somewhere in this stack, if I want to move something to the master, I can have a key binding where whatever I have focus on immediately becomes the master, or I can just do a super shift J and K and move things around in the stack, the order. But typically I'm not worried about where things open up, as far as the order on the screen, Just let your window manager handle all that automatically. It adds more work. Manual tilers just add unnecessary work. There's no reason why you need to be worrying about where the windows open up on the screen, in my opinion. Even when I used manual tilers, like if I use i3 or BSPWM or herbsluft, I'm not really playing with the layouts or anything. I'm just opening stuff, and wherever it opens, it opens. I can create my own custom layouts, maybe something that mimics master and stack, great. Once I have that set up, that's all I need. Let's see, you in Xmonad or SpectreWM? This is Xmonad. Do you have an awesome config on your GitLab? Of course. I have configs to Awesome and DWM and Qtile Xmonad. I think I have my old i3 configs. BSPWM is there. I didn't do a whole lot with i3 or BSPWM. I configured them a little bit, but it's not customized the way those other window managers, because they're manual tilers. I didn't live in them but about 30 days at a time. Herbs Luft I looked at very briefly. I do have a Herbs Luft config, I think, somewhere on my GitLab, but it's not something that you guys want to check out. OpenBox for floating window manager. I've got my OpenBox configs also on GitLab. But the ones that you might want to take a look at that are extensively edited and configured, I mean, my awesome config is pretty heavily configured. Qtile and Xmonad especially are, massive configs that I spent many, many years working on. And DT, nice Easter egg reference in the title. Love your videos, by the way. Well, I think everybody knows the GNU/Linux copy pasta. At least this crowd. I would be surprised if anybody watching this didn't know what the title meant. Alright. DT, is there a dynamic window manager that has the master window on one monitor and the stack on a secondary monitor? I'm sure you could do that. You could probably configure your multi-monitors to be one workspace if you wanted to. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you probably could. And I say I don't know why you would want to do that is because the whole point of using tiling window managers especially is because of the fantastic multi-monitor support where every monitor is its own workspace. So when you're doing these key bindings that do things on your workspaces, you have more workspaces to play with and move windows around and swap where things are. If you make, like in my case, my triple monitor here, all one workspace, it kind of limits what you can do. I hope that makes sense. But if you wanted to do that, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could pull that off. I know in Herbs Luft, for example, I could make all three monitors be one workspace. Because I accidentally did it one time playing with the config. Let's see. I just wish StumpWM was more stable, but that thing crashes like mad. StumpWM I didn't get into enough to ever notice it crashing. StumpWM, though, was just frustrating for me to use. Just everything about it. Just maybe it's because it was written in Lisp and I'm not comfortable with programming in Lisp, but like the default config, hitting Control C or what was it, Control Z plus some other combination of Control plus a letter does things, and it's like those key bindings were horrible. And then I couldn't really figure out how to change it to normal key bindings. Like I'm sure there's a way to just change things to super plus a key, but I researching it for a couple hours. I couldn't find people that did it. Everybody using StumpWM are these GNU Emacs fanboys that love the Control Shift and Control C and Control X and like I don't want any of that. I don't want key chords to do simple things. Sometimes key chords matter. I mean, they make sense. I have key chords in my Xmonad config that launch certain things, but not things I use constantly. Like opening a terminal or opening up a run prompt. I don't want some weird, complicated key chord to bring up deep menu. I just want, super plus a key. All right. But StumpWM, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point and give it another shot. I'm not totally against revisiting it at some point, but man, it was frustrating. It was very frustrating that first time I tried to take a look at it. And, I spent a few hours with it. It wasn't like I installed it and just didn't even give it a shot. I mean, I tried to configure it. I configured the mode line, which was the panel, and tried to set some key bindings and things, and it was just It was clunky. It was unusable, really, even after spending a few hours in it, which gets back to why something like Awesome Window Manager is great for noobs. It's because you don't have to spend hours to make it workable, you know. Even after spending a few hours in StumpWM, it was still pretty much completely unusable as far as getting any real work done in it. Hey DT, is there any way to make Xmonad respect window size hints? So are you trying to set a window to be a specific size? I'm assuming that's what you're asking. I don't have anything like that, any rules like that in my config, but I'm certain there would be. Considering Xmonad has been around forever and a lot of people have used it. And the Haskell community is rather large. I'm sure there's ways to set up window size hints if that's what you need to do. What you need to do is set up a rule where the window becomes floating and then it sizes it to, you know, a specific size, or maybe you have to do an XY coordinate on a monitor or something like that. But yeah, I would bet that that's possible. I would actually be shocked if that wasn't possible. All right. The nice thing about Lisp is you can hack on everything, hence something like Spacemacs. But yes, a lot of extra effort to invest to set something like that up. Yeah, that's my problem with, well, I say it's my problem. I mean, I like Emacs, but, you know, you got to learn Lisp to do anything in Emacs. And who wants to learn Lisp? Well, what can you do with Lisp? Like if I became a master at Lisp, what could I do? What do people do with it? The only thing I know people do with Lisp is configure Emacs. I mean, that's the only thing people... Basically learning this language that has one use for all intents and purposes. DT has been streaming a lot more lately, says Felix. Yeah, I went a while without doing a lot of live streams. I like doing pre-recorded content more than live streams, but I don't mind doing live streams. But yeah, here in the last couple of days, you know, done 2 this week. It's unusual you guys get 2 live streams. I'm going to do another one Sunday morning. That's the chat with patrons, though. So those of you that are patrons of the channel can join me on a conference call. But yeah, you know, just doing some live streams, and I'm thinking about in the next week or 2 doing another gaming stream, a community gaming stream where we get together and play something. We've been doing a lot of Xenodic. I think the next time I do one, we'll probably do a game on Steam, you know, do a proprietary game. Something that's free, though, so everybody can play. In case you don't have it, we'll probably do something like Team Fortress 2, since we always love shooters when we do those community game nights. Let's see, DT, Luke Smith has a specific size for his webcam in his videos, but it's still in tiling mode, and it stays like a square. So you're talking about where MPV will have some weird... I know what you're talking about. Yeah. As far as whether that's possible, I'm not sure. That's not something I've looked into. Usually I don't have my MPV windows tiling. Not something... I don't know. Do you guys watch videos in tiling mode? That's strange. Like, it's kind of a neat that if you wanted to figure out how to do that, but... I never watch a video tiling, ever. When I launch MPV, it's full screen. It's going to be in monocle mode. Usually monocle mode with no borders, no struts. And when I say no borders, no struts, it would be like if I'm just going to open a terminal. But it's basically, if I hit a super and space in my Xmonad config, super space puts a window in this layout here, which is basically full screen, but full screen, no struts, no borders, you know, there's no border around the window, there's nothing. That window is 100% of the screen. You know, that's the way, when I'm watching a video, that's what that's going to be in. It's never going to be in a tiling layout. And Not sure why you would want it. It'd be really tiny. I mean, even in master and stack, even if it was the master window, it's only half the width of the screen. You know, it's going to be scrunched up. It doesn't make any sense to. Now, that's another one of those weird use cases. Kind of like the terminal swallowing people were asking about the other day. And you know, it's like, who the hell launches MPV or your image viewer from the terminal anyway? You know, why wouldn't you just launch a video in your video player or or from a run launcher or something? You already know the terminal is going to be useless when you launch a video from it anyway. Why did you go to the terminal to watch a video? I can understand, you know, occasionally you're already there. You happen to come across a video and you're like, oh, I should watch that video. But still, I can't think of a time, and I'm being dead serious. I can't think of a time in the last year or two where I've launched a video from the terminal with the intent that I was actually going to watch that video. I can't think of a time of me ever doing that. And I'm in the terminal all the time. Oh, by the way, though, getting back to the window swallowing thing, there is one thing we should mention. Other than my video discussing that script the other day about devour, I guess enough people in the Haskell community and the Xmonad community were also being asked about this window swallowing thing. I mentioned I was bombarded with emails. I guess some of the Haskell devs were being bombarded by people about this window swallowing thing. Somebody actually created a window swallowing module. They've already pushed it to the Xmonad-contrib. Hasn't been released yet. But if you go look at the source code for Xmonad-contrib, you know, for the development of it, it's pretty soon coming. I don't know when it will finally land in Arch or whatever distro you're on. There will be a window swallowing module in Xmonad-contrib. So problem solved there if you guys want that. Which I figured somebody would create it because it's seems like such an easy thing to solve anyway. Not easy for me because I don't know enough Haskell to do it, but somebody that knew some Haskell, it seems like, yeah, somebody wrote a script, probably took them all of 10 minutes to write it, and they've already pushed it. So. Hey, DT, DT, I can do it in Awesome, DWM, BSPWM. i3 never could do it in Xmonad. I'm not sure what you were talking about there. You still talking about the MPV thing? I don't know. I've never tried to though. So in any window manager, I don't. Again, I typically don't open MPV and try to tile it. But that would be a question you should ask the Xmonad guys. No, I know a lot about Xmonad, but I don't know 5% of the things that are possible with Xmonad. Go to r/Xmonad over on Reddit. Post your question there. Bet you will get a quick answer. Let's see. It's nice to have a video on the side when I have a single monitor. Yeah, that's true. I'm on a triple monitor system, so I have a lot more screen real estate. I just throw something full screen on a monitor somewhere, and then I still have my other monitors. Yeah, you make a point. Yeah, on a single monitor, I guess it would make sense, or on a laptop. I watch videos in tiling mode usually when I'm doing some work, as I can watch and listen full screen on a second display. Yeah. DT, I felt really cool when starting a video from the terminal for the first time. I forgot the coolness factor. Yeah, I remember that very first time I entered something in the terminal and it worked. Yeah. Made you feel like one of those movie hackers, huh? We're about to take over the moon and hold it hostage, right? It's like the Austin Powers movie. Gonna hold the moon for ransom until we get our $1 million, right? Only can watch videos in Emacs, yeah? Well, I'm sure you probably could watch videos in Emacs if you wanted to. I haven't tried it, but you can do anything in Emacs. the DT, what's window swallowing? That's what I said when people asked me about it. I'm glad I'm not the only one that was confused by that term. Window swallowing was basically when you launch a video or an image viewer, a PDF viewer, or something from the terminal. You know, you still have your terminal open, then you have your movie playing in MPV or whatever, but your terminal is useless because it's still running the MPV process, but you can't really use that terminal. You can't really close it either, because if you close it, you close MPV. So people were wanting where window swallowing, you launch MPV in a video from the terminal, MPV pops up, the terminal goes away. When you close MPV, the terminal comes back so you can still use it. It's kind of what they were getting at there. Yeah, and yeah, I actually like the devour option, so I'm sticking with that for now. Yeah, that script is so simple. Did you guys read the source code for that shell script, the devour script? Once you have the tool XDO installed on your system, that devour script is like 5 lines. 5 lines of shell script. And it makes that window swallowing happen. Or more specifically, it makes the shell swallowing happen, because that's really what it's all about. But again, I don't see why you would ever need window swallowing in anything that wasn't a terminal. I mean, I had to think hard about it for a while. Surely there's got to be something else I would want swallowed. I can't think of a single application other than the terminal I would ever want to launch something from and then that window be swallowed. I can't. Maybe you guys have thought about it. It'd be interesting if there was more stuff like that. Yeah, for the person asking about tiling across multiple monitors, look up Xmonad -screen -triple head it's a long thing there on Wikimedia. Okay. Well, whoever was asking that, yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ken Dog. Cameron is asking, what can't you do in Emacs? Nothing. There's nothing you can't do. Literally nothing. That's like that video I did the other day on, it wasn't the other day, it was about 2-3 months ago, of common settings people have in their dot files. Where this guy scoured GitHub, looking at common dot files most people have on their Linux machines, and looking at the most common settings that people have in their dot files. And in the exinit RC files, so anybody that uses startx to launch a window manager, what were the most common settings in that file? Well, the most common settings were execute i3, execute bsbwm, execute dwm, and he examined like 500, I guess, exinit RCs. And in 8 of them, and at least 8 of them, execute Emacs was actually in that file. So for at least 8 people in that survey, when they hit Start X, what does it launch? It launches Emacs. So what can't you do in Emacs? There's nothing you can't do in Emacs. A lot of people make that joke, Emacs is a desktop environment or Emacs is an operating system. Well, literally, Emacs can be a desktop environment. Because you can configure Start X to basically just launch Emacs. And then once you're inside Emacs, I mean, everything works because you can do splits and tabs and everything once you're in a Emacs buffer. From there, if you're comfortable in Emacs, you can live inside it comfortably. DT, what keyboard do you use? I use the ErgoDox Easy. I've done 2 videos on the ErgoDox Easy. That is split screen keyboard. I can't actually, the cord is not long enough for me to actually get it on camera here. That's 1/2 of the split. That was the right hand. It's a programmable mechanical keyboard. Very nice. Love it. Yeah, the devour script is nice, but it breaks a lot when there are spaces in the file names. Huh. Well, you already know where I would probably my response to that. And probably a lot of old-timey Linux folks You really shouldn't have spaces in your file names because it does cause problems. Not just in something like that devour script, but in a lot of things. Spaces are going to cause you issues. Learn to love underscores and dashes. And if you're going to use underscores and dashes, pick one or the other. Don't mix and match. What are the most common scenarios when Arch breaks? I don't know. I mean, when you say breaks, you'd have to be... There's a million different ways something could break. So I'm afraid that's a question I can't answer. So the question is way too general. But I can tell you, if you're going to have a breakage, like a package break or something, typically it's not going to be something that you're going to have to wipe out your system and reinstall or anything. It's going to be something minor. Typically, the program that's broken, you reinstall it. Or if it's a package that's broken, what you can do is downgrade to the earlier package. But honestly, I've downgraded packages in Arch, I think, twice, ever. My entire history of using Linux, I have downgraded packages on Arch or an Arch-based system twice, ever. It's not something that happens. Arch is pretty stable. So there's rarely anything that breaks bad enough that requires me to really have to go and fix something. Yeah, you can't use Microsoft Outlook in Emacs. You probably could. I bet I could get a Windows VM to run inside of Emacs if I needed it. Yeah, next we can create an Emacs inside Emacs using Emacs. You can do that. ADT, what's your day job? Are you a Linux sysadmin? I've never had a job involving Linux or computers. So my job until recently was working in retail, but I quit my job just a few months ago, right before the coronavirus. I was working in retail as a manager for a large retailer that had some serious issues. And then when the coronavirus hit, they had even more serious issues. So serious that, in fact, had I still been with the company, I actually found out the other day they eliminated my position anyway, like the person that they hired after me. I feel bad for the person because they couldn't have worked more than 2 weeks before coronavirus, and then everything shut down, and then they just slashed all the supervisor positions. Let's see. Someone should do an Emacs bootable directly from the BIOS instead of an OS. I don't. So Emacs, people like to make the joke that Emacs is an operating system. No, Emacs can be a desktop environment if you want it to be. Emacs cannot be an operating system because you still need the kernel. Yeah, have problems running NVIDIA Optimus GPU device with Arch. Switching graphics is really hard to do and the performance isn't that good. Do you know anything about it? I don't have an NVIDIA Optimus device. Now, when you guys ask me about hardware things, 99.9% of the time, I'm not going to have an answer for you. Because I'm one person. How likely is it I'm going to be using the same hardware you guys are asking about? It's pretty unlikely. For something like that, you need to go to a support forum. You need to go to the Arch forums especially. So go to the Arch Linux forums, go to the Arch Linux subreddit, or go to the Arch Linux IRC channel. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of people hanging out there waiting to answer your support questions. I might can help you occasionally, with software problems, but when you start asking about hardware stuff, unless I happen to be running that exact same machine with that exact same hardware, Yeah, you know, you're not going to get an answer from me. You know, I'm just one guy. You need to go somewhere where you've got a big pool of people to ask, and then one of them might be running the same thing that you're asking about, that Optimus GPU. Yeah, so DT, it's 3 a.m. here, and I'm still compiling Gentoo. Okay, it's been a day, LMAO. I'm so bored of Arch not breaking. Hope this helps. Well, I will say that I have had Gentoo break on me. I haven't, lived in Gentoo long term, but I played on and off with Gentoo and some Gentoo-based distributions over the years. And I have had updates in Gentoo. It didn't go well. Like, you reboot and you just get a black screen, video drivers broken, or Xorg sometimes is broken. I've never had that happen with Arch. I have had that happen with Gentoo. So, yeah. As far as you compiling Gentoo and it's been over a day, yeah, if it's a bad machine, I mean, if it's a low-spec machine that doesn't have a very good CPU, yeah, it's going to take a long time. That was always the joke, that, you'd start compiling Gentoo and it'd take 3 days sometimes. That was the joke 15 years ago, because back then we didn't have very powerful CPUs. Processors were bad back then. So if you had to compile massively big programs like GCC and the kernel, it took days. Now our hardware is much better. If you have a decent machine, you can compile Gentoo in a few hours. 3-4 hours, probably, on most things. If you have a really good machine, you might get it done in under an hour. If you have a really beefy machine. If you have a complete potato of a machine, though, yeah, you're still looking at, you're going to start compiling it. It may not be done by the time you go to bed. That's fine. You'll just come back to it when you get up in the morning. Yeah, Xorg is easy to fix, though. Haven't had that happen in many years, though. You haven't had Xorg break on you in many years, huh? I've had it, the Xorg breaking on me, I've had it happen a couple of times. Not really recently, but 2-3 years. I mean, I've had it happen for sure. Yeah, Brian says, cheers, DT. Enjoy your beer. Thanks for getting me into Arch. Okay. I'm glad you're liking Arch. Started with Slackware many years ago. Yeah. Been through a lot of old distros and Ubuntu. Loving Arch. Yeah, Arch is really nice once you... I mean, there's a reason why Arch has become so popular and why so many Linux distributions now base off of Arch. It makes a lot of things so much easier. I know for especially newer to Linux users, like if you're using Ubuntu, for example, there are some things that I can do on Arch that are so much easier to do on Arch than are on Ubuntu. For example, installing and configuring a tiling window manager. It's a lot easier to do on Arch than it is on Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is going to want to install a full desktop environment. It's going to want to pull down the Ubuntu desktop and GDM and all the GNOME dependencies, and because the people that use Ubuntu, that's what they're using. So it assumes everybody wants to use that. So there's so much stuff that's tightly integrated in Ubuntu, where Arch has that keep it simple stupid, where nothing gets installed on Arch unless I install it. It would be really difficult, not really difficult, but it would be 10 times harder for me to go grab like an Ubuntu server ISO and try to do a minimal install of pick your favorite tiling window manager with light DM, and pretty much what I've got going on here with Arco Linux. It would be a major pain to do that compared to just doing it on Arch. All right, DT, you look like the we have it at home version of the rock. I'm not sure about that. I think I missed that joke. Let's see, do you know an OS similar to Arch without proprietary drivers that you would recommend for the experience? So do you know an OS similar to Arch without proprietary drivers? So if you don't want any proprietary software, I'm assuming that's what you're asking. You want one of the official free software foundation endorsed distros. There's just a handful of them out there. And if you want something based on Arch that is free as in freedom, Parabola. There's an Arch-based distribution called Parabola. Has absolutely no proprietary software, so no proprietary drivers. But you could play with that. The only thing I would say is you're asking, would I recommend that for experience? There's no reason to run it for experience. It's not going to provide you any experience. The only reason you would install something like that is because you were morally against proprietary software. Experience doesn't even play into the decision. Whether you run Parabola or you run mainline Arch, it's the same distribution. It's just one is not going to have any proprietary software, which means if you have a laptop that requires proprietary Wi-Fi drivers, you're never going to have Wi-Fi on that laptop. That's what that means. If you have an NVIDIA card, which anybody that runs NVIDIA knows you have to use the proprietary drivers because the open source drivers are complete garbage. Well, on Parabola, you're not getting the NVIDIA proprietary drivers, so you're going to have to use those really crappy Nouveau drivers. So think twice about that before you jump into that. Again, if you want to do that for moral reasons, to make a stance against proprietary software, I'm all for that, and I applaud you for that. But you're not going to get any Linux experience doing that, because at the end of the day, it's no different than just running Arch anyway. Let's see. No doubt about it, Arch is the best. Yeah, says Yates. All right. Arch is superior in every way to Ubuntu. And depending on what you want to do. Some people just like to be presented with a configured desktop environment with a suite of software already installed. Grandma's not going to like Arch, right? Don't install Arch on Grandma's PC. Don't do it. All right. How are the Gentoo repos compared to Arch in package size and ease to find everything? Pretty comparable. If I installed Gentoo and ran Gentoo, I could find all the software I want. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the Gentoo repositories. I don't have a problem with Debian. I don't have a problem with Arch. I don't have a problem with Gentoo as far as the size of the repositories. All good. Like, rarely do you have to go out of your way to go find something. The only caveat in that is with Debian. I'm talking about Debian Unstable. If you run Debian Stable, then you may occasionally have to go compile something from source because you need a newer version of something that's not going to be in the repos. I started in 1996 with a big box of Linux CDs. Did I get all the distressed to work? Not sure what you meant with that, but that's cool that you've been using Linux, for so long, 24 years. DT, I used Nouveau for a long time, even for gaming. It was horrible. Well, guess what? If you install that free software foundation endorsed distribution and you have an NVIDIA card, get used to Nouveau. That's what you're going to be using. I'm morally against data collection and tracking. Yeah. I'm not sure what that was about, but yeah, have you guys heard about this new bill coming up here in the US? Where any device, any piece of software that has encryption in it, the government wants there to be a backdoor for the US government to be able to use. So, yeah, you can put encryption on that device as long as there's a backdoor that the US government can take a look at things if they need to. Obviously, organizations like the Electronic Frontier Freedom, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, and the Free Software Foundation, the FSF, have kind of lost their minds over the idea that this bill is even proposed. Yeah, that legislation is scary. Absolutely. I mean, already you got to figure, even before this bill being proposed, that the government's, cracking into everything anyway. Is Tails really secure? Is the Tor network really secure? These three-letter government agencies are probably already able to get into that stuff anyway, but now they want to make sure that, hey, we want to be able to get into everything, and we're actually going to make it illegal for you to encrypt something in a way that we can't get into it. And what makes this so incredibly retarded, like, the people that are in the Congress and in the Senate, most of these people don't know anything about technology, but okay. So I'm going to be able to encrypt a device as long as I leave a back door that allows the U.S. government to get into it. Yeah, because if I leave that back door for the U.S. government, they're the only ones that are ever going to get into that device, right? Yeah, because if I leave a back door, it's just for the U.S. government. Nobody else could use that. That's stupid. I mean, you're letting everybody in at that point. You might as well not even encrypt it. It's just... the world has become so incredibly dumb. Like, the average IQ of the average person has just dropped massively in the last 20 years. It really has. Things that I would assume no normal person would put up with, 20 years ago now, yeah, we just accept it. And you'll get the people, well, if you're not hiding anything, why you need to be private, and why you need things like Tails and Tor, and you're not doing anything illegal. Yeah, whatever. Yes, Yates is right. Yes, a total lack of knowledge and understanding. Yeah. Well, it starts with our kids, and the problem is the younger generation. They never grew up with anything besides all of this. If you didn't grow up before cell phones and cameras being on every block, and all these listening devices, listening to every word you say all the time, no matter where you're at, if you didn't grow up in that world, you assume this is normal. Yeah, Big Pod says every exploit is a total exploit. Yeah, you can't just leave an exploit in something and think that's only for one person. As long as we leave this one hole in this, whatever you think about the government, exploiting that, but then you also leave it to, like legit hackers that want to steal people's data and maybe potentially do some really nasty things. It's just odd, that we want to legislate encryption in such a way to basically completely neuter it. You guys, I've mentioned this so many times on the channel. I don't want to, keep preaching the same thing, but I said it recently. But if you guys are not supporting the EFF or the FSF, please become a member, donate money, because those guys, I've said this so many times, they are actually out there fighting. They're fighting every day. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, and the Free Software Foundation, the FSF, are out there fighting for all of us. Even for those of the people that don't care. Like the kids that I was talking about that don't even know about this legislation, don't even care. Whatever your views on this kind of stuff, they don't care. The EFF and the FSF, they don't care. They're fighting for everybody. And they need to be. Unfortunately, there's not enough people backing them. There's not enough people fighting that fight with them. Yet. Maybe one day we'll get there. If enough people that have a platform, speak out. Yeah, OBS Dark says, yeah, the EFF and the FSF are true heroes. Absolutely. Because you never know. One day, somebody's going to come after you in a big way. And when you have organizations, especially if you were a member of that particular organization, that would stand with you, What is the FSF? That is the Free Software Foundation. Actually, I could pull up a browser and actually show you guys. I do know there's some people probably on the stream that haven't been subscribed to the channel very long and probably have no idea when I talk about these organizations what I'm actually talking about. But the you go to fsf.org, the Free Software Foundation, fsf.org. That is the Free Software Foundation. And I believe the Electronic Frontier Foundation is EFF.org. It is. EFF.org. And you see some of the latest news. Do they have anything on this latest bill? I know they sent me an email. I got an email from the EFF. I might have gotten an email from the FSF about that bill. Yeah, right here. The Senate's new anti-encryption bill is even worse than Earn It, which was another evil bill. Anyway, you guys should read this. Matter of fact, I will post the link into the chat right now. You guys can click on it, open that in your browser, maybe bookmark it, save it for later if you want to read it. It's a good read. It's not a very lengthy article. It's basically the same thing I got in email form. When you're members of, like FSF, I've been an FSF member for a couple of years. Like once a week I get a newsletter or whatever emailed to me, which is great because you get notified of things like this, maybe things that you wouldn't have been told about otherwise, because mainstream media, you're not going to see this on cable news. You're not going to see anything about it in your local newspaper, even though this is probably a bigger deal and will make more of a negative impact on people's lives than 95% of the crap you see on whatever's playing on cable news right now. Yeah. Yeah. Easy says the thumbnail for this live stream is the opposite of clickbait. Yeah, this is, hey, stay away from this stream bait. Yeah. People are really put off by that fat belly. I don't get it. I mean, I got a little pudge. I mean, I got some weight on me. You guys must all be super skinny. Wait till you get a little older, the metabolism starts slowing down. Maybe you have a few too many. We live in a world governed by technocratic occultocracy. What the hell kind of word is that? Pushing a digital neo-feudalism. Dude, are you playing Scrabble right now? Or are you talking in the YouTube chat? Did you try? You tried to put 15 of the craziest words you knew into one sentence. Archidox says, DT, it's not just the young generation. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of older people that don't care either. Yeah, the vast majority of Facebook. Yeah, anybody that uses Facebook obviously doesn't care. But we're starting to crack that nut, though. We're starting to get more and more people that use Facebook off of Facebook. People are starting to come around on that. People that a few years ago just looked at you like it was crazy. Now when I tell them, hey, I don't use Facebook and you shouldn't either, people are actually kind of receptive. Some of them, that 5 years ago would have said, man, you're an idiot, or just looked at you like you were a conspiracy nut. Now, hey, man, you shouldn't be using Facebook. They'll be like, yeah, I know. Right? So we're making small progress. Yeah, is Debian unstable a rolling release? Yes. And is it that unstable? Yes. Well, I mean, it's unstable as in it's a rolling release. It's a real rolling release, meaning it's a lot of fresh packages all the time. So it's as unstable as something like Arch and Gentoo. Maybe not as bleeding edge as always the latest packages as Arch, but pretty close. Gentoo, I've noticed, doesn't release these new applications quite as quickly as Arch. So the cadence on the release of these programs, these new applications, is a little different in all three. But yeah, if you're running a rolling release distro, expect some instability. The reason especially Debian calls their rolling release branch unstable is because the people that run Debian, like 99% of the people that run Debian, are running Debian stable. If you're running Debian on a server especially, you're running Debian stable. You're not even touching the testing branch or the unstable branch. So the people that run Debian unstable is a very small portion of the Debian community. And by calling it unstable, they're just letting you know, hey, things may break. Oh, and if they do break, you're on your own, buddy. A little different when you run Arch and Gentoo, because you run Arch and Gentoo, everybody is on the rolling release branch. Because that's the only branch. There's no other branch. All right. After encryption again, are they? Yeah. Yeah, they're always going to be after encryption. I don't know what they think. I don't even know what the government thinks they're going to accomplish by being able to read encrypted devices. I mean, think about before electronics were before computers were a big thing. You know, you didn't have surveillance everywhere, you know. Law enforcement, even back then, law enforcement and the government and the military, they were all still were able to function. You know, now it's like, oh, we got to know more stuff than the enemy. Yeah, we have to learn how to make our own electronics, says Leo. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's going to get to that point where you have to basically build your own computer from scratch that the government never knows about. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, Big Pod says, I use Google services because they will get that data anyway. Why not? Well, that's part of the problem with Google, too. What browser do you use, DT? I'm using Firefox as far as that's what I opened up here on this stream. I've got a few different browsers installed on the system, but I've always been a Firefox user. Let's see, DT, don't you think that AI and the big data can be combined to analyze data gathered from these? Oh, yeah. Well, it's all a data mining scheme, is what you're getting at. Oh, absolutely. That's what it. Yeah. The problem is, you know, so the government's going to get all this information and data mine it for some reason. You know, do you trust the government with that data? What about the people that try to steal that data from the government? Because the government gets hacked all the time. Right? You never know who's going to end up with this information is the problem. Let's see. I don't think DT has much of a use for Kali Linux. Yeah, I'm not a pen tester, so I can't really tell you anything about the distribution. I had to make a Facebook for my public high school because it was convenient for the teachers. I'm kind of defeated because I fought them, but all my peers defended it, so I was alone. I lost. Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do in certain situations. Like if your job requires you to use certain things, you got to use it. You know, if your school requires it, you got to use it. DT, isn't Mozilla being bought by Comcast now? What's up with that? Are they? I hadn't heard that. I hope not, because I have Comcast as far as my cable service and internet service, and Comcast sucks. As far as a company, as far as their products, just everything about them. Comcast is horrible. All right, guys. Well, we've been going for about an hour and a half. I'll probably go another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll kill the stream. You got any more questions? Any topics you want to talk about? No, here in the news lately, well, the big thing here lately was what we covered with that bill about encryption. Some of the other stuff, you know, people have been asking me about. I mean, some of it I mentioned on video, I mean, people really asked me about the GitHub thing. I really didn't care about changing master branch to main branch. That's kind of a non-issue for me. Another one people have asked about, I've briefly mentioned my thoughts on it on camera, where people were asking me about Linux Mint getting rid of snaps. And that one, I don't understand why people were mad at Linux Mint doing that. I mean, I think it's not a great decision for Linux Mint, but that's kind of the direction they're wanting to go. They want to get away completely from Canonical and Ubuntu. They've been doing this for a couple of years. I mean, they got rid of having snaps already on the system and put Flatpak in. They did that, what, a couple of years ago? Now they want to prevent you from even being able to get snaps on the system. The only issue I would have, actually, with the way Linux Mint is handling all this is the reasoning they put out as far as why they're doing it is a little weird. It's your distribution, right? Your distribution, you do what you want with it. Linux Mint didn't want anything to do with snaps, and they want to go with Flatpaks. Hey, it's their distribution. Let them do that. But when they try to prevent people from even being able to put snaps on the system, and then say the reason they're doing that is, well, they mention things like, well, you have to have root permission to install snaps, and they don't trust snaps because snaps are owned by Canonical. Like everything in the repositories, every deb package being installed practically on Linux Mint is coming from Canonical. Canonical already has root permission over everything on your system if you're running Linux Mint. And you're worried about snap packages? It's like, if that's really your reason, then you shouldn't base your distribution off of Ubuntu at all. You should just move to Debian, which may be where they eventually end up. Because every time Linux Mint does something like this, it seems like they just really don't like Ubuntu and Canonical, which is really weird. It's really weird to dislike a distribution that you base your distribution on. Because why are you adding all this extra work? I wouldn't do it. Like if I hated Ubuntu and I just thought everything about it was terrible, I wouldn't base a distribution off of it. Just move to Debian. But a lot of people kind of lost their minds over, Linux Mint doing this, because it's like, I didn't even see this coming. This is so out of left field, them preventing people from installing snaps. No, it's not. You could see this coming. This wasn't weird or anything. Now, the other weird thing about it, getting back to BigPod earlier made a comment that he uses Google services. He shouldn't, but he kind of trusts Google. What's weird is, so the Linux Mint guys don't trust Canonical, so they don't want to have the Snap Store and Snap daemon and everything installed on the system because we don't trust Canonical. But people are going to want to install Chrome and Chromium. You can't get the Snap. Now you're going to tell people to go grab the package directly from Google to install Chrome or Chromium. So you're telling people, we don't trust Canonical enough to let you install the Snap package. Please go get it from Google. We trust Google. Really? It's just craziness. It's just absolutely insane. Yeah, to enable the snaps in Mint is very easy. It's like 3 lines of terminal commands. Yeah, you just edit one file. You delete some stuff. I mean, people that know better, most of the people watching this stream would have no problems quickly getting Snapd back installed and installing all your favorite snaps on Linux Mint. Problem is, a lot of the people that install something like Mint are really new Linux users and just, not computer enthusiasts. They're your basic computer user that wouldn't even know how to open a terminal and use it. All they know is I can get on, my web browser and go to Facebook and visit with my Facebook buddies. That's what most people use a computer for. Most people are not like us. We're the nerds, right? I know sometimes we kind of forget that there's that other group of people out there that really outnumbers us massively. Those people that really, they don't do anything with their computer except open a browser and go to Facebook. Maybe watch a YouTube video every now and then. That's about it. I mean, you guys have family. I see the way, members of my family use their computers. That's about all they do on that stuff. I'm assuming that's what most of your guys' family probably do too. Yeah, DT, is CSGO basically open source since it got leaked a while ago? I don't know if it's leaked, but open source is more than just the source code being available. We've done videos on this. Unless CSGO is relicensed under a license that the OSI, the Open Source Initiative, says is compatible with the definition of open source, then no, it's not open source. Just me going out there and reading some leaked source code doesn't make the project open source. It would still be illegal for me to modify that source code and distribute it and all kinds of other stuff that is fundamental to something actually being called open source. All right. Yeah, DT, my beer is done. I leave you. Yeah, I'm leaving too. I said I'd give it another 5 minutes. We gave it another 7 here, so we will call this a day. Yeah, Mint should do a PPA for the proper Chromium deb package. Yeah, that's what I would do. You don't trust Canonical for it, fine, but I wouldn't trust Google with it either. The Mint team, if they're worried about the integrity of that package, should just maintain it themselves. Absolutely. DT, are there any extremely small distros out there? Oh, plenty of them. Are you talking about small as in ultra minimal? I see what you're saying. Something like damn small Linux, yeah, which has been damn dead for like 10 years. Pardon the pun. Puppy. If you want something smaller than that, TinyCore is still around. TinyCore is ultra minimal. Not much to it. Now, where do you announce live streams? On YouTube. When I schedule a live stream, if you're subscribed to the channel, you should get a notification about it. If you don't get a notification early, you should get a notification as soon as I start the live stream. But YouTube's notification system's kind of flaky, so. Yeah, it's actually an engine from Team Fortress, which is partially used in CSGO. I'm not sure what game he's talking about there, Big Pod. Who is using an engine from Team Fortress? Oh. And is it an open source game? I like Team Fortress. It's proprietary, but I mean, if you're going to game, you kind of have to use proprietary software. There's not much of an option there. Which we might do Team Fortress on the next community game night, Big Pod. Might do that next week. Alright, guys. Well, let me get out of here. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Before I go, I need to thank the names you're going to see on the screen here. This is going to be all my patrons. These guys, they are all my supporters on Patreon. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out in the YouTube chat. We still had nearly 300 people here, nearly 2 hours into the stream. Thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate your questions because I really didn't have much planned, and you guys basically were the content for this bloat/live stream. All right, guys. Peace.